they increased their payroll for this season by about $7 million at the deadline, with all the various moves, the money going back and forth, the players going back and forth, and that's under the new ownership. I didn't have a do not disturb sign, so I couldn't put it up there, and they evidently did not hear me and my brilliance talking to you guys. So, on Crochet. Crochet is a guy that, yes, had that complicating factor. He said he would only start the rest of the year, only would pitch in October if he got an extension. That definitely affected things. The way the White Sox saw it, the offseason presents perhaps a greater opportunity, and not just for that reason, but also because you'll be coming off a season, and by then, in the offseason, teams will not just be trading prospects, but they'll be willing to trade major league players, and you can cite these Corbin Burns example from a year ago, or last offseason, when the Orioles traded effectively two major leaguers, Joey Ortiz and DL Hall, for Corbin Burns. So that opens it up. Also, you'll have ownership in various cities looking to 25 and wanting to improve their teams. And Garrett Crochet is still going to be rather affordable. His first-year arbitration salary was $800,000. Second year will be what, $3 million or so at most, $4 million. So that's enticing too. And then you also have an entire draft class from 2024 in the pool of available players. So they feel they're going to do just fine in the offseason if they decide to trade him then. The question is, what were they offered now, and what will they be offered in the offseason, and was what they were offered now that much better? I don't know the answer to that. Jason Stark wrote in The Athletic yesterday that the White Sox did have some pretty intriguing prospects thrown their way, but for those reasons that I just stated, they felt they didn't have to do this now, and they didn't. And they feel also that the value, which is really tied up mostly in those 2 extra years of control, considering he wasn't going to be much of a factor down the stretch or in the playoffs, they feel that value will be there.
Ken, one more, and then we'll move on to other teams besides the White Sox. We did get a super chat from Ref. Status on Pedro Grifol managership. Just wants to know if there's anything else cooking there with the team. Obviously, given the epic losing streak that's going on right now, I feel like there's a lot of buzz.
I thought it was going to happen after Wednesday's game. I thought it was going to happen yesterday on the off day. It hasn't happened yet. I still expect it to happen in relatively short order. And I'll say this. Obviously, when something like this happens, the manager bears some responsibility, clearly. But this goes far beyond Pedro Grifol. And when a manager is dismissed, the way I often look at it is that it's an organizational failure. Your organization failed to put a good enough team on the field to have a manager succeed. And while Grifol certainly has not done the greatest job there, and there are all kinds of questions about his tenure, fair questions, at the same time, the White Sox need to clean it up overall, even if they fire him tomorrow, today, whenever the case might be.
Hey, Ken, enough about the White Sox. It's been shambles. Let's talk about a team who's just coming off a World Series championship. And when we look at the deadline, the Texas Rangers, I'm befuddled on where they stand. Or are they waiting on guys to get healthy? Because when you look at this, when you look at Andrew Chafin, you look at Walker Pennington and Carson Kelly, these aren't needle movers. What is the outlook for the Texas Rangers? Are they waiting for, guys to go on waivers? What are they looking to do? Where are they right now?
Well, they were looking and are looking for guys to get healthy, Cam. And Young came back. They've got Bradford now. And, of course, DeGrom is to come, as well as Tyler Mahle. They are in position, they feel, to still make a run. Now, if they don't make a run, different question, and perhaps at that point they do the waiver dump thing with the free agents, right? The potential free agents, Kirby Yates, David Robertson. I doubt it, honestly, because they want to continue to compete. But the reason they didn't do more is because they still feel that they're in a pretty good position. And actually, until about, 2 or 3 days before the deadline, there was some talk and there was some possibility that they were going to sell. So they weren't going to shift from possible seller to dramatic buyer, not when they had all these players coming off the injured list.
Are there any GMs that are on the hot seat? We talk about Pedro Grifol possibility changing. After this trade deadline, are there GMs that could possibly be on the way out as the season ends or the season's completely over during the season?
It's a good question, Eric. And 2 guys come to mind, and I don't know that they're on the hot seat, but there have been conversations, at least in the media, about them and within the industry. I'm talking about two guys in the NL West, San Francisco Giants' Farhan Zaidi and the San Diego Padres' A.J. Preller. Now, Zaidi, obviously, they spent a lot of money last offseason. He did get an extension, and that would seemingly indicate they want him to stay around. They like what he's doing. But if they fail to make the playoffs, there will be talk, at least, about whether he should return. And again, it's never so simple as saying the GM screwed up and this didn't happen. If they had not lost Jung-Hoo Lee, who knows how the season might play out differently. But those things happen. So he's one. AJ Preller is a completely different scenario. And he has been a guy who has made that team into kind of a phenomenon in San Diego in many ways. Now, he's done it while trading prospects, while raising payroll, although they cut back this year. And while Peter Seidler, the owner, was alive, Peter Seidler was A.J. Preller's biggest fan. Now, Seidler no longer is there. Do they have to make the playoffs for A.J. Preller to survive? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the internal dynamics of San Diego. And certainly, you could argue that this year he has done his best job. Jackson Merrill, they committed to him in center field, and it worked. Donovan Solano's a role player. Then there's the Cease trade, the Arias trade, the two trades for the relievers at the deadline. All of these things to supplement the team and make the team better. They're certainly doing well in San Diego. High attendance, passion from the fans. So you can see why there are questions because they have not succeeded in a larger sense. They've made the NLCS the 1 year, but other than that, they've just been okay. And at the same time, you wonder what's going to happen in the future because they have traded away a ton of prospects. But as I've said before, he seems to replenish all the time. So it really comes down to whether the current people running the team believe in him. And it's funny, before the deadline, I had a conversation with the GM and I said, do you think Preller will be aggressive because he's trying to save his job or because he's always aggressive? And the GM said to me, how do we know the difference? It's the same guy all the time. And that's him. That's what he does. So I don't know that he's in trouble, but if that team suddenly doesn't make the playoffs for whatever reason and has a bad ending, who knows?
I will say this. If you're just a fan of the game, he's awesome because he always brings activity, and that is fun to follow. So
one more I want to mention.
Yeah.
I agree.
I didn't realize it.
Mhm.
Toronto, Russ Atkins. Now, they actually made some trades that were well received within the industry, the prospects that they got back, but there's certainly been a lot of talk about that team and how it has not played to its potential and how what they have done has not worked. So would Mark Shapiro make a change with Atkins at the end of the year? Would ownership, which is largely uninvolved here, decide that they want to go completely in a new direction and change out Shapiro and Atkins? I don't know, but Russ Atkins would be another guy that I would imagine is under scrutiny.
I'm going to get to a fan question here from Brian. With the Marlins essentially selling off the entire team, will they be players in the free agent market next year? I don't know if he was kind of half kidding because then he was bringing up names that they would never sign, like Soto and Burns. But Ken, I mean, if I had to guess, because I feel like I know this team pretty well, living down there for a while, whatever, and I've heard the same speech over and over, they sold off parts. So now they get to take their time and not spend for a while again.
That's what they're going to do. And it's clear that their strategy with Peter Bendix, who came from the Rays, is to be the East Coast Florida version of the Tampa Bay Rays. That's what they want to be. Low payroll, develop guys, trade them when they start making money, keep churning it out and competing that way. They're not going to go into the market and go crazy. I don't know, ever. Last year, they signed one major league free agent coming off a playoff appearance. And that was Tim Anderson, who ultimately did not even succeed with them and had to be let go. So, no, they're not going to spend money. We should just move on. Not happening.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Hammer it home. Okay, here's a team that could spend money. This is another good fan question. I know you're covering the Guardians and the Orioles this weekend. So Sam asks, out of all of the young core Orioles, rookie core Orioles though, so that takes Adley and Gunnar out, who realistically could they sign long term? And I know it's going to be a special weekend with Kobe Mayo now joining the fold, and I don't know if fans know about him nationally enough, but this is a guy that has the chance to hit right away.
When you ask about extensions, you have to start off by asking who the agents are. And when Scott Boras is the representative, the extensions become that much more unlikely. Scott Boras represents Gunnar. He represents Jackson Holiday. So you can probably take those two out of the equation immediately. Adley would be possible, I would expect. And then you have guys like Westberg and Mayo now, and Heston Kjerstad and some others. I don't know that any of them has shown enough yet. Well, Westberg has to warrant an extension, but that's kind of something that remains to be seen. I will say this for the Orioles. They increased their payroll for this season by about $7 million at the deadline, with all the various moves, the money going back and forth, the players going back and forth, and that's under the new ownership. David Rubenstein and his group took 100% control yesterday, so they're now officially the entire owners of the team. And they also took on, in this deadline, Eflin's $18 million salary for next year, and they took on Trevor Rogers' final 2 years of arbitration, a couple of option years that they can exercise or not. So they're clearly spending more than they did under the previous ownership. Now, they couldn't spend any less, so that's a step forward, and it remains to be seen just how aggressive they will be. I do not expect them to be spending $200 million for Corbin Burns, if that's what it takes, but I do expect them to be more of a player than they've been in the past.
You're watching a game tomorrow, calling a game tomorrow between two teams that haven't spent. And one is going to spend more. One, the Cleveland Guardians, will not spend. That is just their MO. They extend guys. What are you most surprised about with Cleveland, even with what they don't spend?
From a baseball standpoint, Eric, what surprises me most is their offensive transformation. And this was a team that was a bottom 5 offensive team last year. Now they're a top 10 team. I haven't checked the stats lately, but they've been a top 10 team pretty much all year. We're top 5 for a while. And they adopted this whole different philosophy in the offseason. They were going to try not to be Punch and Judy anymore, but to hit the ball harder. It's worked. And they've come a long way. And the other thing that surprised me is if you would have told me Cleveland would be in this position without Shane Bieber and with their starting pitching basically a mess, which it has been for most of the season, I would have said no way. But their bullpen has been arguably the best in baseball. Their offense has been transformed, and they've been one of the great stories of this season. Them and Milwaukee. Now, my question with both is, can they sustain it? Not just into the playoffs, but getting to the playoffs because of the pitching questions in the rotation that they both have.
Ken, on the way out here, it's more of a yes or no. I mean, if you want to dive deeper, we can do this in the offseason. I just wanted to throw this in there because I mostly just feel bad. But Trout's injury and some questions from fans like, will they finally trade him this offseason? I'm like, no, this actually puts them way backwards on that conversation. So can you agree that the chances are probably as low as ever right now that he would get dealt in the offseason based off the injuries? Okay.
Absolutely low as ever. And Scott, first of all, he's making a lot of money, right? It's $30+ million a year. Second of all, he hasn't been on the field. Bill Shaken of the LA Times tweeted yesterday that in the last 4 seasons, Mike Trout has played a total of 41 games in the second half. 4 years, 41 games in the second half. That's astonishing. It's kind of heartbreaking in a lot of ways, but until he gets on the field and establishes himself again as an everyday player, a guy you can count on, the talk of a trade is almost folly. I guess the Angels, if they wanted to pay all of it or pay a good percentage of it, could make it happen, but I don't expect that to happen. And what Cam was saying earlier about the need to move him to left field or either corner, that has to happen at this point. And they're going to have to figure out ways to protect him. It's been crazy, all the injuries that he has had, and it's been crazy how long the recoveries have been in a number of these cases. And you just have to see or hope that Mike Trout eventually becomes some semblance of Mike Trout again. When he's healthy, he has shown that he can be, but he's just not been healthy.
Yeah, it sucks because he's just so fun to watch for any fans. It's Ken Griffey Jr. vibes to an extent too, where you didn't get the same Griff obviously for a decent chunk of time, but I mean, center fielders, they're humans. It happens. It sucks. But Ken, thank you very much. We'll watch you on the Fox game, Cleveland and Baltimore. Have fun, and we will talk to you not next week, but the week after. Enjoy the undisclosed location time.
That's right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, FT fam, it's Alana Rizzo. I can't stop talking about Vuori. Vuori is perfect if you are sick and tired of traditional old workout gear. I wear Vuori in all settings, not just in the gym, because honestly, it's comfier than whatever you're currently wearing. No joke. I'm wearing Vuori daily leggings right now. They're high-waisted with the drawstring and cuffed ankles. They look good and they feel great. You're going to love them. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they are offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/foul. That's VUORI.com/foul. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuori.com/foul and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.